When I picked up my daughter Meadow from my mother-in-law's house that Tuesday afternoon, I thought the worst thing that could happen was she'd fed her too much sugar. Then I saw my baby girl sitting in the corner, completely bald, tears streaming down her face. She didn't speak for 2 days. What I did next made my husband choose between his mother and his family, and his choice destroyed everything we'd built together. My name is Bethany Cromwell, and I'm about to tell you how one woman's twisted idea of discipline nearly broke my 8-year-old daughter's spirit. This isn't just about a haircut. This is about the moment I discovered the two people I trusted most with my child had betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. Meadow was the kind of child who named earthworms she saved from sidewalks. She'd wake up singing, her golden hair cascading down her back like sunshine. That hair was her pride and joy, reaching all the way to her waist. Every morning I'd braid it while she chatted about her dreams, her little hands gesturing wildly as she spoke. She'd been growing it since she was 3, determined to look like the princesses in her storybooks. My mother-in-law, Judith, had different ideas about what little girls should value. She was a woman who wore her severity like armor, a retired bank manager who believed children should be seen and not heard, obedient and never questioning. She watched Meadow twice a week while my husband Dustin and I worked, and while I had reservations about her harsh approach to discipline, free childcare from family seemed like a blessing we couldn't refuse. I should have listened to my instincts. I should have paid attention when Meadow started coming home quieter on the days she spent with Judith. I should have recognized the warning signs when she began asking if being pretty was a bad thing, if God really did punish vain little girls like Grandma said. But I didn't see it coming. Not the complete violation of trust, not the assault on my baby's body and spirit, and certainly not my husband's role in allowing it to happen. When I found Meadow that day, shaved bald and broken on her grandmother's guest room floor, something inside me snapped. Not into rage, but into a cold, clear understanding that I would protect my daughter, even if it meant destroying everything else. The justice system calls what happened assault on a minor. Judith called it a lesson in humility. Dustin called it overreaction when I filed for a protection order. But Meadow? My brave, beautiful girl who lost her voice for 2 days and her trust forever. She called it the day Daddy let Grandma hurt her. This is our story, and I'm telling it because somewhere out there, another mother might be ignoring her instincts about who to trust with her children. Somewhere, another child might be suffering under the guise of discipline. And somewhere, someone needs to hear that when forced to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your child, there's only one right answer. I chose my daughter. I filed the papers. I stood in that courtroom and watched my husband pick his mother over his own child. And despite losing my marriage, my home, and half my family, I'd make the same choice again today. Because when your 8-year-old looks at you with hollow eyes and asks why Daddy didn't protect her, you realize some betrayals cut deeper than any scissors ever could. The morning it happened started like any other Monday. I dropped Meadow off at Judith's pristine 2-story house at exactly 7:30. She hugged me extra tight at the door, her hair still damp from her morning shower, smelling like strawberry shampoo. I kissed the top of her head and promised to pick her up tomorrow afternoon. If I had known it would be the last time I'd see my daughter's beautiful hair, the last time I'd see her smile without fear behind it, I would have held her longer. I would have taken her with me. I would have never let go. But I did let go. I walked away. And 27 hours later, I walked back into a nightmare that would change our lives forever. Judith stood in that doorway with righteousness in her eyes and my daughter's hair in her garbage can, and she actually expected me to thank her for teaching my child a lesson. The lesson Meadow learned wasn't about humility. It was about betrayal. And the lesson I learned wasn't about forgiveness. It was about the fierce, unwavering protection a mother owes her child, even when that means standing against the entire world. Life in our suburban Indianapolis home was perfectly ordinary, or so I thought. I'm Bethany, and for 12 years, I'd been married to Dustin. We had our beautiful daughter, Meadow, who just turned 8 last spring. She was the kind of child who'd rescue earthworms from sidewalks after rain and name every stuffed animal with careful consideration. Her favorite was a purple elephant named Professor Plum, who attended every tea party and heard every secret. Our house on Maple Street looked like every other house in the neighborhood. 2 stories, white siding, black shutters, and a front yard where Meadow had planted sunflowers that now stood taller than she did. Inside, our refrigerator was covered in her artwork, mostly drawings of our family holding hands under rainbows. In every picture, she drew herself with extra long yellow hair, swirls of crayon extending past the edge of the paper. Her most treasured feature was indeed that hair, golden waves that reached her waist. Every morning, I'd sit her on the bathroom counter and carefully work through any tangles while she told me about her dreams. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want hair that touches the ground like Rapunzel," she'd say, and I'd promise to help her grow it as long as she wanted. We had a whole routine: detangling spray, her special pink brush, and then braids for school or ponytails for soccer practice. She'd swing her head afterward, feeling the weight of it, move, and giggle at the sensation. Dustin was a good father in the ways that counted on paper. He showed up to recitals, paid for soccer camp, read bedtime stories when I worked late at the library. But he had one weakness that I'd convinced myself was harmless: his inability to stand up to his mother, Judith. He was her only child, and she'd raised him alone after his father left when he was 10. That trauma had bound them in a way that sometimes felt unhealthy. Though I'd learned not to voice that opinion, Judith Cromwell was a force of nature wrapped in Ann Taylor suits and pearl necklaces. At 64, she still carried herself like the bank manager she'd been for 30 years, before her retirement 2 years ago. She had opinions about everything: how I organized our kitchen, what books Meadow should read, even how often we should vacuum. "Children need structure, Bethany," she'd say, her voice sharp as winter wind. "You're too soft on that girl. In my day, children knew their place." Her house reflected her personality: immaculate, cold, and utterly controlled. Plastic covered the formal living room furniture that no one was allowed to use. The carpet showed vacuum lines that couldn't be disturbed. Even the fruit in her bowl was fake because real fruit might attract flies. This was where my daughter spent Mondays and Wednesdays while Dustin and I worked. I'd learned to smile and nod at Judith's constant corrections. After all, free childcare was nothing to scoff at when you're trying to save for college. My salary at the elementary school library and Dustin's work as an insurance adjuster covered our bills, but extras were tight. Besides, Meadow seemed to manage her grandmother fine, though she'd sometimes say troubling things I should have paid more attention to. "Grandma Judith doesn't like when I sing," she mentioned once over dinner. "Well, some people prefer quiet," I'd responded, not looking up from the permission slip I was signing. "Grandma says I'm too proud of my hair," she said another time, twirling a strand around her finger. "Grandma's just from a different generation," Dustin had replied. "She means well." That phrase, "she means well," was Dustin's answer to every concern I raised about his mother. When Judith criticized my housekeeping in front of Meadow, she meant well. When she told Meadow that girls who wore nail polish were asking for attention, she meant well. When she threw away the chocolate chip cookies I'd packed for Meadow's lunch and replaced them with rice cakes, she apparently meant well too. That particular Monday started like any other. I kissed Meadow goodbye at Judith's doorstep at 7:30 sharp. Judith didn't tolerate lateness, even by a minute. Meadow hugged me tight, tighter than usual actually. Looking back, I wonder if somehow she knew what was coming. "Be good for Grandma," I said, the same words I always said. "I love you, Mommy," Meadow replied, her face buried against my stomach. "Love you too, baby girl." As I turned to leave, Judith called out, "Bethany, I've been thinking Meadow needs to learn some humility. That child spends entirely too much time preening in mirrors, admiring herself like some kind of peacock." "She's 8, Judith. All little girls love playing with their hair." "Vanity is a sin," she replied, already closing the door. "It's my responsibility to guide her properly when she's under my care." I sat in my car for a moment, unease prickling at my neck. But then I looked at the clock, realized I'd be late for work, and drove away. That decision, that moment of choosing punctuality over instinct, haunts me still. Tuesday afternoon came with spring thunderstorms that turned the sky the color of old pennies. The library basement had flooded again, a recurring problem the school board kept promising to fix, and my supervisor sent everyone home at 2 o'clock. I sat in my car, windshield wipers beating against the rain, and decided to surprise Meadow by picking her up 3 hours early. Maybe we could bake cookies together or paint our nails that bright purple she'd been begging to try. I didn't call Judith. Some instinct, maybe the same one I'd ignored the day before, told me not to give warning. The 10-minute drive to her house felt longer in the storm, thunder rattling my windows as I pulled into her driveway behind her pristine white Cadillac. The house was eerily quiet when Judith answered the door. No cartoons playing, no sound of Meadow's constant humming. The silence felt wrong, like walking into a library after an earthquake, when even the books seemed to hold their breath. "You're early," Judith said, not moving from the doorway. Her face was flushed, and she kept touching her hair, patting it into place repeatedly. The library flooded. "Where's Meadow?" Learning a valuable lesson about humility. The way she said it with such satisfaction made my stomach drop. I pushed past her, my wet shoes squeaking on her perfect hardwood floors. "Meadow? Baby, where are you?" The living room was empty, throw pillows arranged just so. The kitchen gleamed, no sign a child had eaten lunch there. My heart began racing as I moved down the hallway calling my daughter's name. Then I heard it. Soft crying from the guest bedroom at the end of the hall, the one Judith used for storing her deceased husband's things. I flew down that hallway and threw open the door. What I saw stopped me cold, my brain refusing to process the image. My daughter sat on the floor in the corner, surrounded by golden hair. Her hair, all of it. Piles and piles of it scattered around her like fallen autumn leaves. Her beautiful head was completely shaved, patches of skin showing through uneven stubble where the clippers had cut too close. She looked up at me, eyes swollen from crying, and opened her mouth, but no words came. "Meadow!" I dropped to my knees, crawling through the hair to reach her, pulling her into my arms. She was trembling so hard I could hear her teeth chattering. Her scalp was red in places, tiny nicks where the clippers had caught skin. She felt smaller somehow, diminished, like a bird that had lost its feathers. Judith appeared in the doorway, electric clippers still in her hand like she was proud of them. The child was becoming obsessed with her appearance. "I did what you were too weak to do. 3 hours it took to get it all. She fought at first, but children need to learn obedience." "You shaved my daughter's head?" My voice came out as a whisper, disbelief choking me. This couldn't be real. This had to be some nightmare. She needed to learn that beauty is fleeting. Humility is forever. The Apostle Paul says women should not focus on elaborate hairstyles, but on good deeds. I've done her a favor. "Get out!" I screamed, surprising myself with the force of it. Meadow flinched in my arms. "Get out of this room right now." This hysteria is exactly why the child is so spoiled. When Dustin hears about your behavior, he'll understand I did the right thing. He already agreed it was necessary. My blood turned to ice. "What did you just say?" Judith lifted her chin. "I called Dustin this morning and told him Meadow needed correction. He said I should do whatever I thought best." I held Meadow tighter, feeling her small body shake against mine. "Leave this room, Judith, now." She huffed but left, muttering about disrespect and ingratitude. I held Meadow for 20 minutes, rocking her like when she was a baby, before she finally whispered the words that changed everything. "Daddy said Grandma knows best." Daddy knew. I pulled back to look at her face. "Daddy knew Grandma was going to cut your hair?" She nodded, fresh tears spilling. "Grandma called him at work. She put him on speaker so I could hear. He said to listen to her and stop being vain. He said it was just hair." Just hair. My husband had called our daughter's autonomy, her security, her treasured feature just hair, and given his mother permission to take it by force. I gathered Meadow up, carrying her like a baby, though she was getting too big for it. Judith stood in the hallway, arms crossed, blocking our path to the front door. "You're overreacting, Bethany. Hair grows back. In 6 months, this will all be forgotten. Move, or I will move you." Something in my voice must have convinced her because she stepped aside. As I carried Meadow past her, Judith called out. She sat still eventually, once she realized fighting wouldn't help. 2 days. Meadow didn't speak for 2 days. She wouldn't go to school Wednesday morning, just shook her head violently when I mentioned getting dressed. She wouldn't eat her favorite strawberry pancakes, wouldn't watch cartoons, wouldn't even pet our neighbor's golden retriever when he bounded over to our yard. She just sat in her room, wearing a winter knit hat in May, staring at nothing while clutching Professor Plum to her chest. I called in sick to work both days, sitting outside her door when she wouldn't let me in. I could hear her sometimes, little gasps that sounded like words trying to form but failing. The pediatrician, Dr. Renfield, saw us Wednesday afternoon. She took one look at Meadow's shaved head, at the small cuts on her scalp, at the way my daughter pressed herself against me when anyone approached, and her face went hard. "This is trauma response," she said quietly, while Meadow sat in the examination room with a nurse. "Has she spoken at all?" "A few words Tuesday night. Nothing since." "I'm referring you to Dr. Camille Norton. She's a child psychologist who specializes in trauma. Bethany, I have to ask, who did this to her?" "Her grandmother, with my husband's permission." Dr. Renfield was quiet for a long moment, typing notes into her computer. "I'm mandating this report. You understand that, right? This meets the threshold for abuse." Thursday morning, while Meadow colored silently at the kitchen table, still wearing her winter hat, I called my sister, Francine. She was a paralegal at Brennan & Associates, a family law firm downtown, and when I told her what happened, she went silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. "Say that again," she finally said. "Judith did what?" I repeated the story, watching Meadow draw the same picture over and over, a girl with no hair crying. "Bethany, this is assault. On a minor. By a family member. Where's Dustin?" "He's been staying in the guest room. Says I'm overreacting, that kids are resilient, that his mother was just trying to help. He actually said maybe Meadow was getting too focused on her appearance. He's lost his mind. Listen carefully. You have options, but you need to decide what you're willing to lose." I looked at my daughter's empty breakfast plate, the one I'd optimistically filled with scrambled eggs she wouldn't touch. I thought about finding her on that floor, surrounded by her own hair like some horrible sacrifice. I thought about her asking why Daddy let Grandma hurt her. I'm willing to lose everything except her. Good. Document everything. Take pictures of her head, the cuts, everything. Get the pediatrician's report and make sure she files with CPS. Get Meadow to that psychologist immediately. Has she spoken yet? A few words this morning. She asked if her hair would grow back the same color. Jesus Christ. Okay, we're filing an emergency protection order. Not just any protection order, but one that specifically documents assault on a minor, emotional abuse, and psychological trauma. This will appear on background checks. Judith will never be able to be alone with Meadow again. Dustin will lose his mind. Dustin gave permission for his mother to assault your child. We're also filing for emergency temporary custody with a stipulation. Any parent who allowed or facilitated the assault cannot have unsupervised visitation until completing parenting, classes, and therapy. I made my decision in that moment, watching Meadow draw another bald girl, this one holding hands with what looked like a mother figure. Do it. File everything. That afternoon, while Dustin was at work, I packed our things. Not everything, just what we needed. Clothes, Meadow's stuffed animals, her drawings, the baby book where I'd saved a lock from her first haircut. I found myself holding that small curl, remembering how proud we'd been of her beautiful hair even as a baby. I put it in the bag, too. I also packed the Ziploc bag of hair I'd gathered from Judith's floor when I'd gone back Tuesday night. Dustin had called me crazy for collecting it, but something told me to keep it. Evidence, maybe, or just proof that it had been real, that beautiful hair that had taken years to grow. I left Dustin a note on the kitchen table. "Meadow and I are safe. We're staying with family while she heals from what your mother did with your permission. Don't contact us until you're ready to acknowledge the harm you've both caused our daughter." As I loaded our bags into the car, Meadow finally spoke a complete sentence. "Are we leaving because of what Grandma did to me?" "We're leaving so you can feel safe while you get better, baby." She nodded, wise beyond her 8 years, and climbed into her booster seat. As we pulled out of the driveway, she said quietly, "Daddy didn't protect me." "No, sweetheart, he didn't." "Will you always protect me?" "Always, even if I have to fight the whole world." She was quiet for the rest of the drive to Francine's apartment, but she held my hand when we walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with wood paneling that had seen better days and fluorescent lights that hummed like angry wasps. It was Friday morning, 2 weeks after the incident, and Meadow sat beside me in a new pink dress Francine had bought her, a soft cotton hat covering her head. She'd started talking more, but her voice was different now, smaller, like she was afraid of taking up too much space in the world. Judith sat rigid in her seat across the aisle, wearing her Sunday best navy suit with the gold buttons, as if propriety could erase what she'd done. Dustin sat beside her, not with me, not in the middle trying to stay neutral, but right beside his mother with his hand on her shoulder. That told me everything I needed to know about where we stood. Judge Patricia Hawthorne was known for being tough, but fair. She was in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that seemed to see through people. She read through the documents slowly, the photos of Meadow's shaved head showing the uneven patches and small cuts, the psychologist's report about selective mutism from trauma, the statement from Meadow's teacher about the dramatic change in behavior, how she now hid in the bathroom during recess. "Mrs. Judith Cromwell," the judge began, her voice cutting through the courtroom's tense. Silence. "You admit to shaving this child's head?" Judith stood, smoothing her skirt. "I was teaching her a lesson about vanity, Your Honor. The Bible says that women should not focus on outward adornment. 1 Timothy, chapter 2, clearly states that elaborate hairstyles are inappropriate." "I didn't ask about the Bible. I asked if you shaved an 8-year-old child's head without her parents' immediate consent." Her father approved. I called him that morning. Judge Hawthorne turned to Dustin, who was already shifting in his seat. "Mr. Cromwell, you gave permission via phone for your mother to shave your daughter's head?" Dustin straightened his tie, a nervous habit I'd watched for 12 years. "I trusted my mother's judgment on discipline, Your Honor. She raised me well, and I turned out fine." "Did you specifically agree to her shaving your daughter's head?" "I told her to do what she thought was best. Meadow had been getting vain about her appearance, always brushing that hair, always wanting ribbons and bows." "Would you give permission for someone to shave your head against your will as discipline?" Dustin's face reddened. "That's different, Your Honor." "How?" The silence stretched out. Dustin opened his mouth twice, but no words came. Finally, he managed, "I'm an adult." "And your daughter is a child who depended on you for protection," Judge Hawthorne responded sharply. She continued reading, then stopped at one page, her expression shifting from stern to genuinely disturbed. "This child didn't speak for 2 days. She's been diagnosed with trauma-induced selective mutism?" "Temporary," Dustin interjected, his voice too loud in the small room. "Kids are dramatic sometimes. She's talking now, so clearly she's fine." Judge Hawthorne removed her reading glasses and looked directly at him. "Mr. Cromwell, I have 3 grandchildren. If someone shaved their heads against their will, I'd consider it assault, not drama. Your daughter was violated by someone she trusted, with approval from her father. That's not drama, that's betrayal." She turned to me and her expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Cromwell, you're seeking a protection order and modified custody arrangement?" "Yes, Your Honor. I want my daughter safe. I want her to know that no one has the right to touch her body without permission, not even family." "Your Honor," Judith stood up suddenly, her voice shrill. "This is ridiculous. I'm her grandmother. I changed that child's diapers. I bought her Christmas presents. One haircut and suddenly I'm being treated like a criminal? Ma'am, you physically restrained and shaved a child's head against her will. That child required medical attention for cuts on her scalp. That child stopped speaking. That is assault. Sit down." Judith sat, but her face was purple with rage. Judge Hawthorne continued, "Mr. Cromwell, I'm granting the protection order. Your mother is not to have any unsupervised contact with the minor child. Furthermore, you have a choice to make. You can contest this order and stand with your mother, likely losing custody rights in the process. Or you can accept these terms, complete the required parenting courses, attend family therapy, and work to rebuild trust with your daughter." The courtroom fell silent. I could hear the clock ticking, could hear Meadow's shallow breathing beside me. Dustin looked at his mother, then at Meadow, then back at his mother. "Your Honor." Dustin's voice was strained. "I have to choose between my mother and my family. Your mother chose to assault your daughter. You chose to allow it. Now you're facing consequences. What's your decision?" 30 seconds passed. 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Finally, Dustin spoke. I stand with my mother. Family loyalty matters. Bethany is poisoning Meadow against us. My mother was trying to help, and this witch hunt needs to stop. The gavel came down hard. 6 months have passed since that day in court, and autumn has painted Indianapolis in shades of gold that remind me of what Meadow's hair used to be. This morning, she stood in front of our bathroom mirror, running her fingers through hair that now reaches just past her ears, soft and wavy, and growing stronger every day. She doesn't hide it under hats anymore, though she still keeps the pink one Francine bought her in a special place in her dresser drawer. Our apartment is smaller than the house on Maple Street, just 2 bedrooms and a living room that doubles as my home office. But Meadow calls it our safe house. She painted a sign for her bedroom door that says Meadow's Garden and decorated it with paper sunflowers. The real sunflowers from our old yard are probably dead now since Dustin never remembered to water anything, but we planted new ones in pots on our tiny balcony. They turn toward the sun just like the old ones, proving that some things can begin again. The divorce was finalized last month. Dustin fought for the house, claiming it was his family legacy since his mother had helped with the down payment. I didn't contest it. That house had too many memories of betrayal soaked into its walls. He also fought against child support, arguing that if I was restricting his access to Meadow, he shouldn't have to pay. Judge Hawthorne, who presided over that hearing too, reminded him that financial obligation to his child didn't end because he chose his mother over her safety. Dustin completed his court-ordered parenting courses, but still insists his mother meant well and that we've blown everything out of proportion. He sees Meadow every other Saturday at a supervised visitation center called Bright Beginnings. The walls there are painted with murals of rainbows and butterflies, trying to make the best of broken situations. Meadow is polite during these visits, showing him her schoolwork and talking about her soccer team. But she doesn't hug him anymore. She doesn't call him Daddy, either, just Dustin, in a quiet voice that makes him flinch every time. Last visit, he brought Judith to the parking lot, thinking if Meadow just saw her grandmother, she'd run out for a hug, and all would be forgiven. Instead, my daughter saw her through the window and hid behind a counselor, her whole body shaking. The center filed a report about the violation of the protection order, and Dustin lost his next 2 visits as consequence. That's when I think he finally began to understand that some wounds don't heal just because time passes. Judith sends letters I don't open. They arrive weekly, my name and address written in her perfect cursive that looks like judgment even on an envelope. The return address alone is enough to make Meadow anxious, so they go straight into a file at Francine's law office. Documentation, the lawyers say, in case we need to extend the protection order when it expires next year. The child psychologist, Dr. Norton, says Meadow is making remarkable progress. She's in a support group with other children who've experienced family trauma, and last week she shared her story for the first time. My grandma hurt me, and my dad let her, she said simply. But my mom saved me. The other kids understood in ways that adults sometimes can't, and now she has friends who know why she sometimes touches her hair nervously, checking it's still there. At school, her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled me aside last week to say Meadow had written an essay about heroes. She wrote about you, she said, handing me the paper. In careful pencil, Meadow had written, "My hero is my mom because she picked me instead of picking easy. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear library name tags and fight in courtrooms." Last night, while I was braiding her hair for school, a new routine with hair just long enough to hold small plaits, she said something that stopped my hands mid-braid. "Mommy, I forgive Grandma Judith." My stomach clenched. "You do?" Not because what she did was okay. It wasn't. But holding angry feels heavy, and I want to feel light. My counselor says forgiveness is for me, not for her. 8 years old, and she understands something that took me 38 years to learn. I finished her braid, tied it with a purple ribbon she'd picked out herself, and watched her smile at her reflection, not with the unconscious joy she used to have, but with something deeper, harder earned. "I'm growing it long again," she announced, "but this time because I want to, not because I think I have to be pretty. You know you're beautiful no matter what, right?" She turned to face me. "I know I'm valuable no matter what. Beautiful is just a word. Valuable is who I am. Some people still think I overreacted. They whisper at school pickup about the woman who destroyed her family over a haircut. But they didn't see my daughter silent on that floor. They didn't hold her during nightmares. They didn't watch trust die in a child's eyes. I didn't destroy my family. I saved what was worth saving. One brave little girl who deserved better than the people who should have protected her most.